back to NewsX World. I'm Asuma Katauka and you're watching Focal Length, where we get you a briefing on topics from across the world. Iran is once again witnessing widespread protests against political repression, economic mismanagement, and systematic human rights abuses like the Green Movement of 2009 and the Mahsa Amini protests of 2022. The latest uprising has been met with brutal force, mass arrests, executions, and a sweeping digital crackdown. As the regime tightens its grip through the judiciary, security forces, and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, questions are being raised about the possibility of meaningful change, the role of elections, and the cost borne by ordinary Iranians amid sanctions and instability. To discuss this, joining us now is Ms. Milica Javdan, a human rights activist and political advisor to the Human Rights Research League, an international research-based human rights organization in consultative status with the United Nations. She works on issues of political repression, civil liberties, and state violence in Iran and the wider region. Thank you very much for joining us, Ms. Milica Javdan.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Now, my first question is, Iran's current uprising, like the 2009 Green Movement and 2022 Mahsa Amini protests before it, has been met with brutal repression, mass arrests, and lethal force, given the regime's entrenched security apparatus and shrinking civic space. What realistic mechanisms exist for the Iranian people to translate the protest momentum into sustained political transformation without provoking even greater bloodshed?
Well, first of all, the Iranian regime is a bloodthirsty regime, meaning that in order to get rid of this regime, which is the clear message of the demonstrators in the streets of Iran, there is no way around it. This regime will suppress its people. It will commit crimes against humanity in order to keep itself in power. That has been vivid for the last 47 years. So there is no way to prevent bloodshed in general, but there are ways to limit the amount of bloodshed. And there are current mechanisms in place. For instance, there is an opposition movement, a national opposition movement in Iran, and I'm not saying that everybody on the streets of Iran are part of this movement, because they are not. This is the protest in Iran is initiated by regular people who are not a part of any specific movement. But in order for the demonstrators to be able to use them, the momentum that they have, and to build upon it, they must be better organized into the current existing opposition groups. The one largest is the National Council of Resistance of Iran. National Council of Resistance of Iran has been held together as parliament in exile, if you like, with representation from minority groups, but also the political spectrum from left to the right. So they do exist, and they do have resistance units in Iran. So the more the people of Iran are able to use the opposition movement that is currently in place, and build their momentum on it, the better they can limit the bloodshed. But this regime will have the blood of the people of Iran before it will let go on its grip on power. It is very unfortunate. But there are other opposition movements as well. The one I mentioned, the National Council of Resistance, is led by a woman, Mariam Rajavi, but it's not the only one. It is the biggest national one. But there are also several ethnic-oriented ones. For instance, there are 7 groups of Kurds that work together. They have a council of their own, and there are also several Baluchi minority parties that are active on the ground. And the more these people are able to organize together and coordinate their efforts, the better chances they have. But what we have seen recently is that there is this myth on social media that has gained momentum also in international media, and it's rather unfortunate that this crown prince, the son of this former dictator, Reza Pahlavi, is a supposed leader of this movement, which is completely false in my view and in my understanding of the situation on the grounds of Iran. And it's creating a lot of division amongst people on the ground, because especially the minorities of Iran, which are a great part of the Iranian population, about 49 to 51% belong to minorities other than the Farsi-speaking community. So, and they have been repressed by the Pahlavi dynasty for 3 generations, and they do not wish that dynasty again, that form of dictatorship upon themselves, and they will not give their blood on the streets of Iran for them to come back. So this political campaign, as I see it from exile, promoting this figurehead for the movement within Iran, has created some divisions, and it truly is hurting to some degree the movement by creating divisions. But I still believe there is much going on the streets of Iran in terms of protests. It's just they're less able to communicate with the outside world due to the crackdown of internet.
Thank you for sharing that with us on NewsX World. And Ms. Javdani, despite this widespread anger over political repression and the current protests, many Iranians still participate in elections where the Guardian Council disqualifies genuine opposition. So why do voters still engage in a process they see as illegitimate, or is this driven by social pressure or fear or belief in reform?
Thank you for that good question. Actually, there hasn't been much voter turnout in Iranian elections recently. There was a time when parts of the population would rather reform this regime than to shed their blood on the streets as they are doing now. But they saw for the past 20-25 years that the movement, the reform movement, is more rhetorical than in reality. There hasn't been any substantial political reforms in terms of freedom of expression and freedom of assembly and freedom of parties and freedom of opinion. None of that. So their crackdown has always existed, and as we see now, it's at its worst. But when it comes to voter turnout, for those who do turn out, you see, in Iran, when you do vote, when you cast a vote, it will be stamped in your identity card. And in order to gain social privileges or to be able to work specific within the public sector, you need to show that you have participated in election. It's considered mandatory in those occupations. So a great part of the population do not have a choice. They do not have in reality the choice not to participate in elections. So the turnout that has been should not be interpreted as some kind of legitimizing this regime. It's it's rather an expression of the fact that they have to get their to be able to provide for their families, those who do vote, and the fact that some people believe when giving the choice between worse, something that's just not good enough, but something that is much worse, they rather contribute and cast their vote for somebody that is not as bad as the other candidate. So this is not legitimizing a vote for a vote of confidence for the regime. It's rather a desperation on behalf of those who do vote, cast their votes, and many do not.
I had no idea. Thank you for sharing that insight. Thank you very much, Ms. Javdani. And now Iran is one of the world's foremost executioners, routinely convicting protesters and dissidents under broad national security charges. So how does Iran's judiciary function structurally to be able to do these things, and what pressures do lawyers face when defending individuals who are arrested during these wave of protests?
Well, to understand the Iranian judiciary system, one must know that there are two parts to the Iranian judiciary system. There is the civil system, and then there is the revolutionary courts. The revolutionary courts are specific kind of courts that do process the cases of those who participate in activities against the state. And those are the revolutionary courts are the ones who sentence political prisoners to their death and to long imprisonment. But what is also problematic with a judicial system in Iran specifically is that when a suspect is arrested in the process of investigation and in the process of investigation and questioning by the police forces, the guilty party, so to speak, does not have a right to its own lawyer when being questioned by the police forces. So that's the time. They only get the right to be represented by their own lawyer when they go to court. So prior to that, they are pressured to confess to the crimes they're being accused of, even though they are more, when it comes to the revolutionary courts, and they're victims of those, are most likely victims of free expression, just expressing their opinions. Very often, when it comes to this kind of demonstrations, in order to set an example and push people back into their homes and away from the streets, they arrest people rather randomly. They torture them because they have no right to lawyer when they are being questioned or there is an investigation going on into their case. They are put in front of first of all, they are tortured to make a confession. When they do give a confession, they are forced in front of a TV, and they are supposed to express redemption, and they are supposed to express regret. We have seen several such cases in Iranian television where there was specifically one female who was being questioned by a priest, a sort of judge, a religious judge, and she was confessing to her sins, and she was confessing to being misled, and they spread this on every news channel in order to make people believe that there is some conspiracy, some external from America, from Israel, from wherever, conspiracy behind the demonstrations in the street, which is false. This is false. The demonstrations is an expression of the Iranian people's antipathy towards the theocratic regime in Iran, and so this is for many years this method of questioning defenders without lawyer present and investigating their cases without lawyers present and torturing them into confession has been going on since the beginning of the theocratic rule in Iran, and that is the reason why so many defenders end up in the gallows, because they are tortured into confessions and then they are hanged. And recently there was this 26-year-old young man who was arrested, and he was arrested only within a few days. There is no due process when you're arrested, and within a few days they were going to hang him. So that goes to tell you that there is no actual due process when it comes to the revolutionary courts. Absolutely none.
Thank you for sharing those examples with us, and a great insight hearing from you. And lastly, Ms. Javdan, Iran's economy is battered by corruption, mismanagement, and sanctions. And now renewed protest-related instability. Western sanctions are meant to pressure the regime, but ordinary citizens bear much of those costs. So, in light of this current economic strain tied to protests, are sanctions actually achieving their supposed political goals, or are they inadvertently deepening public suffering? What do you say?
I believe actually to the contrary. I believe that sanctions are necessary because the ones who are shooting their own people are the revolutionary guards in Iran. And the revolutionary guards in Iran, they are the loyal army of the state, of the religious Islamic State. And they are the ones who control about 70% of Iranian economy. They are through their foundations, they buy into the private market, so they control much of the private market in Iran, and that the sanctions are crippling them, because if you trade with Iran, you will be in effect putting money into the pockets of the revolutionary guards. And what we do know that the revolutionary guards do is that they spread terror in all of the Middle East. And what we know nowadays is that they have it is hard for the Iranian government to find people, loyal subjects that will shoot their own people. That's difficult for them because Iranians try not to shoot their own. What they do, what they have been doing for years, is to cultivate strength, loyalty bonds for the regime through the Revolutionary Guard Corps. Revolutionary Guard Corps militias outside of Iran. So they exchange them, meaning that they bring in outside forces from neighboring countries who are loyal to the regime because the regime has been funding their terrorist activities in their own countries. So they bring them in, and they are the ones shooting on the demonstrators. So whenever any country does trade with Iran, they will be filling the pockets of the same forces that are subjecting to their people to the horrors that we are witnessing today. So I believe, yes, the Iranian people are suffering from sanctions, but the sanctions are put in place because this regime is an Islamic terrorist regime spreading fear not only to its own people, but throughout the Middle East. So the sanctions has actually had a crippling effect on the security forces, on the revolutionary guards, and that is a good thing for the people of Iran.
Thank you very much for sharing that. Thank you very much, Ms. Milica Javdan, for joining us and sharing your deep insights on Focal Length with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. With that, it's a wrap on this episode of The Focal Length. For more international news and updates, stay tuned on NewsX World.